Today at Manchester Theatres, I am honoured to be joined by soprano Alexandra Lowe, who is currently performing with Opera North in their new season. They are coming to the Lowry from the 20th of March, and Alexandra is performing in one of the Mozart musicals, Così, tutte, which is going to be performed on the 21st and the 23rd of March. Now, Alexandra has been hailed one to watch because not only has she been nominated for BBC Music Magazine's Best Newcomer Award, after recently graduating from the Young Artist Programme at the Royal Opera House, she has also been wowing audiences and critics alike. She has worked with some fantastic creatives already, including Deborah Warner, John Ramster, Sir Antonio Papano. The list goes on. She is also an established performer and singer with concert collaborations and even has her own solo album, La Voyage. So we are in very good company. So thank you so much for joining us today, Alexandra.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to come on here and talk about our wonderful opera.
Well, before we get to the opera, because normally I will zoom in there and I will be like, tell me about the story and the plot. But before I do that, I want to stake a few claims on you because I believe you have some very strong Northern connections. So can you just tell us why you're one of our own?
Yeah, of course. So my parents are basically Lancashire based. Mum was born in St Anne's near Blackpool, which where I woke up this morning, and my dad was originally from Chesterfield, but spent most of his life in Blackpool as well. So although I was born in Mallorca and I lived there until I was 16, in terms of where I'm from in the UK, it's definitely Lancashire. And I spent many years studying in Manchester. So that is kind of like where I consider myself to be from. Yeah.
And do you notice a difference in the kind of approach to opera? So like you say, you've been in the UK, you've been in Spain. Is there a difference in the way that audiences are kind of warming to it or attend it or...
Well, to be honest, I left Spain when I was 16, and that was kind of pre my career in opera. So I can't really say it. I'd say that people over here are much more used to it than in Mallorca. I mean, it's an island, like it's kind of not like what they're famous for. But certainly in the UK, I mean, it seems that it's been quite popular for a long time, and let's hope that we can keep it that way.
Absolutely. And I think Opera North are doing a fantastic job at doing that and bringing new people in, as I'm sure they will do with Così, tutte. So can you tell us about this Mozart musical and this, because what always strikes me is the story at the heart of these operas is always fantastic. And this one's a comedy. So tell us about the story.
Well, it's a very silly comedy, silly opera, shall we say, but it brings a lot of laughs. And the feedback that we've had so far is that because it's in English and it's so accessible, people just come away and they just love it. I mean, it's just been brilliant. So the plot is basically two sisters are madly in love with their two fellas, and Don Alfonso, who's this like older guy who's sort of like part of their network of people, should we say, places a bet. He says to the boys, "I bet you that your girls are not faithful." And the boys are like, "Absolutely no way, they're amazing, and we're madly in love." And anyway, they make a bet that they would never cheat on the boys. And what they decide to do is that the boys swap. They swap. So they dress up as Albanians and they turn up at our house. We think our actual boyfriends have gone off to war, and they come into our house and we're like totally shocked that there are two new kind of very odd looking guys in our house, and we're like, get out, basically, we're not interested. But as the opera progresses, we basically are wooed and we fall very much head over heels for these other guys. And then at the end, I won't spoil the ending, but it's a bit outrageous. And but the whole like thing where they change costumes and everything, we have no idea obviously that it's our boyfriends. It's all very funny. So that's like the kind of basic idea.
It sounds brilliant. A bit like Superman. Put your glasses on, you'd never know it was a different person.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and tell us about your character. I want to say the name, but I'm scared to say it wrong.
It's okay. It's Fiordiligi.
Thank you.
She's basically she's very headstrong. She's very sure of herself. She has almost she thinks she knows everything about love, but she's so young. Obviously, she doesn't. But she knows deep down that if she goes down this road, this path of even considering this new man, she worries about what the consequences will be, not just on the surface, but deep down. So out of the two sisters, she's kind of like this sort of a little bit more, she's a bit more aware and a bit more serious perhaps. But as a consequence, she falls far deeper than her sister, you know, so the fall from grace is even worse. So yeah, it's a wonderful role to play. She's quite complex, and the range of emotions that she explores is huge. So it's a total joy. I mean, as an artist, it's a gift of a role.
And it's a role that you've, it means quite a lot to you, doesn't it? You've actually played it quite a few different times. And does that, when you're working with a different company or a different conductor, different director, are you finding, because you have done it a few times, that you're constantly discovering new things about the character, because each person obviously views it slightly differently, maybe?
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, the journey that she goes on will always be the same. And I suppose as an artist, as a person, I have changed from when I was 23 till now. So, you know, there has been some development there. But what's amazing is that, you know, I've done it in period costumes, I've done it in modern dress set in the 80s, I've done it in a 20s setting, and each, you know, the directors always bring elements from that era to it.
Yeah.
And there are changes. I mean, you know, this is in an English translation, which is awesome for anybody who's not a little bit scared of the fact that they might go to see something in a different language. This is totally not the case. So it's like really, really easy to follow the plot and get all the gags and everything. So, but for me, learning it in English was like a real roller coaster, really, because I was so used to the Italian, vocally singing in Italian. It's so wonderful. So getting used to the English diction and all the consonants that we use was a bit annoying, but now it's fine. But yeah, just being able to bring it to life in our own language, it makes it almost a completely new role for me. So that has really been kind of like the most unique part of this particular time. So yeah.
Yeah, because just as you were speaking then, I'm thinking, because even learning it in a new language, that must change your musical phrasing and everything. It is almost like learning a new opera, isn't it, really?
It really was, actually.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, when I came to learning what we call the recitatives are like the bits in between all of the arias. So the arias are like when we express our emotion about something that's happened or that's how we're feeling. And then in between all of that, we get the storytelling, so almost like the dialogue. And when I was looking at the notes for that, it was like, I have to just learn this afresh. I mean, it's just totally different because the inflection of the language, where your stresses fall, is completely different. So, and even in the room, we made some adjustments, like to certain words and certain notes, because they felt more instinctive, you know. So, but I mean, thank God. I mean, actually doing it over and over again in Italian, it kind of like to bring a fresh perspective for Tim, the director. It kind of made it easier in a way, because it was like first time for me. So I'm sure there'll be other English translations, you know, it's just God help me when I have to learn that.
And it's kind of different, I suppose, as well, in that this Mozart opera it's like an ensemble opera, isn't it? So every part is fairly equal, as opposed to other operas where you have your leading male, your leading female. Does that kind of change your rehearsal process as well, from other operas?
Well, the thing is with Fiordiligi is that, I mean, and with Dorabella, I'd say that you're just on the stage all the time, you know, and it's not just about your moments, it's constant, you know, especially between the four lovers. we're just constantly interacting and stuff. So yeah, I guess I haven't thought of it as approaching it differently, because even when you're like elite, like say it was like Romeo and Juliet, if you were Romeo and Juliet, you wouldn't approach it differently. You would just, it's all part of telling the story, and you still have all the characters dipping in. And I suppose there's still, you know, you get all your standalone moments throughout the piece. So I still have like my arias and, you know, where I'm on the stage on my own. So yeah, it's not that different, I would say.
And do you have a favorite aria or a favorite comedic moment? Because I mean, Mozart's operas, but this one is known for that kind of cheeky flirtation and a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
So do you have any favorite comedic moments or arias or?
So I think one of the duets that I love the most is, well, there are two. Okay, the first one is a comedic moment. So it's basically when the girls, this is an act two, and up until this point they've been like, we absolutely can't, no way we're going to consider these new guys, it would be morally wrong, blah blah blah. And then my sister comes up and she's like, oh, but just like one question, like which one would you prefer of the two guys? And I'm like, oh my God, can I even say this? You know, I mean, I feel terrible talking about it. I'm like, no, you decide, you decide. And she's like, I have decided. And then the audience just loses it. It's so funny. Everyone clutches, and then we sing this duet about what we're going to do to our new lovers. And there's another moment where I just before I really fall for the new guy, I have to dress up in a soldier's outfit, and so because I'm going to go to the battlefield where our actual lovers are gone, and I'm going to turn up and I'm going to go there and get him back, you know. And I put on this like hat and coat, and I'm like, oh, this instantly changes my appearance, and obviously it doesn't. So that rules that they all have. But then, of course, the love duet with Fernando is just the music and the way she resists him at first. She's like, you know, leave me. I can't resist him. And she's just getting worked up. She's like, God, please help me. And then eventually the music just slowly melts into this like weaving duet with the tenor.
Yeah.
And I just melt into him. You know, I mean, I just absolutely love it. It's just awesome. It's a real gift of a role, to be honest.
And listening to you talk about it there, to me, is brilliant, because it kind of, what you're doing is showing the humor and the real feelings and the emotion attached to it, that as women we are allowed to feel, we are allowed to do this. Because some people sometimes like kind of poke at this opera a little bit and say, oh, it's sexist and it's this and it's that, but actually, I mean, you've kind of just gone, to me anyway, against the grain and said, no, this is a character who knows what she wants, she knows what she doesn't want, and she's living it for her, not because of someone else. Yes, I think that's really important, what you've kind of just pointed out there, against, you know, the critics who say, oh, well, it's this and it's that. And you've also got to remember the time that this was written. It wasn't written now. So yeah.
You know what I find is that with opera, everyone thinks that they're like old stories that are completely unrelatable. And what I love about them actually is that they're just stories about relationships between people. And all of those things happen now. You know, this could happen. Okay, the dressing up aside, like you've got a kind of blind eye to that. But that aside, it could absolutely happen. Two girls, you fellas go off to war, and then these two guys walk in, and you're like, no, they can't, we can't. And then they start like wooing you, you know, head to tail, whatever, showering you with compliments.
Yeah. And
eventually you're like, shall we just have a little, oh, it wouldn't be that bad if we just went out for dinner. And then, you know, oh, well, you know, of course, I mean, this happens now. So it is totally relatable. Yeah. And, you know, at the end, it's not like a jolly, like, oh, ha ha, you know, you guys did this to us. It's like, hang on a minute, this was really messed up, what you've done. And that's how it ends, you know. We're playing, the thing is, you play it deadly serious. You cannot play it as a comedy, and then it becomes, that's how the audience are drawn into it, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. It's just the marriage of real emotions and amazing music, you know.
Yeah, it really is. And I also wanted to ask you about the costumes, because as we've talked about with the language, Opera North like to really challenge things and change it up so that it becomes very accessible. And I've seen this done with costumes, and you've said it, you've seen it where it's been done in the 80s and all of this. Not so much with this one. You've got the full-on big, big costumes, big hoops. I mean, you've got reveals going on. And what I wanted to ask you was, when you've got all these like tight, I'm like literally doing it now, but like the tight costumes and corsets and things, as well as it impacting and changing your ability to move, does it mess with your diaphragm and your singing? If you've got something like and shoving everything up, does it alter your singing?
Look, I mean, so there are two types of singers. Well, let's say girls that wear the corsets, right? Some women absolutely love it to be really tight, and they really enjoy the like pressure that like it's like, so that you can really support, and they love that. Me, I hate it, because when I expand my rib cage and my body to breathe in, I like there to be space. I don't know how they do it, but my corset's really loose, and it won't look like that.
No.
But I could put my arm underneath if I really wanted to. But Heather, who I found that her second act or her second dress that she wears is so tight, and that's how she likes it. I mean, everyone is different. It's very challenging to sing in just the weight of them. I mean, we have like 4 skirts. And the final act, it's a skirt that like it's open at the front, and then we sort of peel it back to reveal this like colourful fabric. It's like the idea is that like they're very plain at the start, and as they they become more and more daring, then they become more colourful. And it's so heavy. It's like the most gorgeous like embroidered fabric. But my goodness, honestly, it's just, and by the end of the night, you're like, get it off me.
It's pretty, but no.
At first you try it on, you're like, oh my god, it's so beautiful. Yeah. And then by the end you're like, I mean, look, we look fabulous, and the people that make the costumes do an amazing job. Yeah. They do it perfectly for you. They're really flexible about what you need.
Yeah.
But man, like wearing this for 2 months has definitely taken its toll on my back.
Yeah, you'll be looking for a good physio.
Yes, exactly. I'm just doing maths on for you. That'll do me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I absolutely love talking opera and learning about it all the time. And even today, chatting with you, you've made it so accessible. So thank you so much. And we cannot wait for the Opera North to come back to the Lowry. They're very, very welcome there. I've seen them quite a few times now. We can catch them from the 20th of March, but you are in Così, tutte from the 21st and the 23rd. So come along, have a giggle and enjoy opera like you have never seen it before. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you so much. Bye.